Talking about standing stones is rather different when it comes from me, I suppose. I don't take the usual views of the reasons perhaps why they erected stone circles and stone monuments. I, as you may already know, tend to favour the idea that most of these monuments were erected because of a desire to exert power. Whether that was entirely conscious is another matter, but I think with the advent of farming and land settlement and ownership of land, then there was a need to exert one's power if one owned land or had a settled establishment where hunting would have been restricted because you cannot hunt on my land. So animals were kept, crops were grown, and when the Neolithic revolution began, suddenly the world changed forever. When you think of erecting a stone circle and the weight of some of the stones, it does make you wonder why people would want to go to such lengths to build something of that size. As weird and wacky as it sounds, there's a valuable question you can ask yourself. If you'd never lifted a stone from the ground ever in your life, and no one else had, how would you know how heavy stone was? Would it be as heavy as it is today? Might that therefore have been a factor in quarrying and in planting stone? Might stone have felt lighter in earlier times because such colossal weight was something that humans were unaware of? Remarkable though they are, we come to the biggest question, I think, in all this, which is why? Why would you want to build such structures when for thousands of years you'd been enjoying hunting and gathering to your heart's content? There was no need to change anything because that was how you lived. You lived with earth, you lived with the natural world, you lived with all the other wild creatures, and there was really no need to do anything else that made life better because life was as it was and life was as good as it could get. One stone monument that is in, I think it's in Ireland, I think it's called Browns Hill, but anyway, the capstone on that structure is said to weigh around 160 odd tons, and that doesn't bear thinking about. To think of trying to lift something like that, there are many engineers who will say that lifting something like that is quite an impossibility, especially for Stone Age people. Even today, the equipment you'd need to lift a stone of such size is not really easy to find. So when they say they put it on rollers and they pushed it up and they used slaves and they did this and they did that, all these different theories they use, I don't know whether that is accurate or true, and in fact I don't know how they put such a capstone on the top of other stones. I can't quite believe that they actually did it this way. Theories range from, well, aliens building them to slaves building them. Anything could have happened, really, and I think we need to be open-minded. We have a very narrow view of the universe. We seem to think that, arrogantly, that we are the only form of life in the way we live it physically in the universe, and we don't really tend to believe that anyone else could exist out there. And if we do, we're looking for signs of life that correspond immediately to our biological structure. So you could say that Earth is closed to the rest of the universe, and that's why we never discover life, because we've got a narrow way of thinking. But you could also have the other viewpoint, that the rest of the universe is closed to us, because, quite frankly, who wants humans who have meddled with so many forms of life and ruined and made extinct many forms of life meddling in your affairs? Well, you only have to look at the way humans have started to drain the earth resources and used up everything that the earth can offer, and just abuse of many innocent animal species, innocent indigenous people. All the innocent have just been run out of existence. So yeah, there are many theories, and you could say it's one way or the other, but it all deserves investigation and thinking about with an open mind, I think. The sheer mystery of the stone building back in the Neolithic times is quite remarkable, really, how we're all driven to want to know more about it. I think the earliest one, the one that was built some 10,000 years ago, and I believe it was covered over, and you can't help thinking that perhaps they did it and then thought, what are we doing? This is going to change life forever. What are we doing? Standing these stones means that it's going to have terrible repercussions on hunter-gatherer lifestyle. There are so many questions around this. All I know for my own part is that the hunter-gathering communities were literally beginning to be wiped out of existence as soon as these first stone structures appeared, together with farming. Obviously, they were relating something religious to the farming, but I don't believe that these stone structures like Stonehenge were a mere calendar. I don't believe that at all. I think there was a power issue going on. I also think there was possibly a magical issue going on, and that we believed as hunter-gatherers that something wasn't as bad as it could be, perhaps, until our hunting lands were taken away. And once they were taken away, then we realised that life had changed, because we realised also that there was a dominant culture forming. We were suddenly under the thumb of some mighty culture that was pressing down upon us and telling us, not asking us, but telling us to change our lives forever. For my own people, the Romany gypsies, who were nomadic, who were hunters, of course they dabbled here and there in civilised life, but they were still essentially nomadic, and they were still essentially attached to that old way that had lasted for, well, tens of thousands of years. It makes the mind boggle how long everything went on until it suddenly was changed by farmers and by people who thought they could teach others how to live. So when we say magical power is at work, what sort of energy or magical power are we talking about? We have to look at the idea that before stone was quarried and made into a monument, it was in the ground. It was fed and nourished by the earth. And this goes for lots of things that we take out of the ground. But once something's in the ground and it stays in the ground, it's fed and nourished by a super energy, which is Earth's energy. So when we say it has power and energy, etc., in the way it's constructed, in the alignment of it, and perhaps healing energy, are we talking about an energy that is just corresponding to us, or are we talking about a great earth energy? Because they really are different things. If you take a songbird and put it in a cage, it may still sing, but it isn't natural. It isn't natural for a songbird to be caged. So are we doing a similar thing when we're quarrying the stones, taking them for our own ends so that they serve us alone, and then kind of making use of that idea? But perhaps a question needs to be asked about the fact that, is that energy the same when the stones are extracted from the earth as when they are attached to the earth or being nourished by the earth? It's like dead wood. You chop a tree down, turn it into an item of furniture. It may still have a little bit of the spirit of that tree that it once was, but it won't be the same as when it is growing marvellously in a forest or in woodland and it's left to its own natural resources. Same could be said for a lot of things, a lot of species, even us, humans. We are the same. We've been domesticated within an inch of our lives, and we're just not the same as we would have been when we were, as C.G. Brown says, integral to Earth. We were part of Earth. We belonged to Earth. So Earth never belongs to you, you belong to Earth. Another question, another idea to ruminate on. So we have to ask, who built these stone structures? Who prized that stone out of the ground? And who understood the workings of what these stone structures were about? Who did all of this? As has been presented in this video, it might have been him. You'll have noticed they're all hymns, and that's because generally females don't seem to have the capacity to ruin the planet in the way men do. But without a shadow of a doubt, we know for a fact that it wasn't him. In no way could ancient man, who had existed for tens of thousands of years, millions of years, in no way could he commit a crime like that. And I do believe that it's actually a crime. When something wipes out indigenous people who've always lived in the natural way, I can't see it in any other way. These people who could use stone without abusing it have been abused themselves by us in modern times. And their story has never been really fully told. But I think we owe them that. As our ancestors, we owe them that. If we believe they were innocent, then it's a good thing to challenge current historical thinking regarding the stones, and to at least give back to early tribal humans their own story, the story of the dark clouds that gathered in their future, which they might just have told around their campfires. Once, a long time ago,